Let's talk about TikTok. Specifically this TikTok from the summer of 2023. This is Dominic Inarella. He doesn't know it yet, but he's about to become TikTok's newest star.
Where's my dad? I'm all alone. I'm too small to be here on my own.
An innocuous video of Dominic rehearsing for a musical inadvertently became an internet meme seemingly overnight. The original video has over 2 million likes and has been shared and saved hundreds of thousands of times. Whether it's his strong voice, the homemade puppet, or the song itself, people connected to Dominic's performance and turned him into a viral sensation. A viral sensation that made lots of people say, "Wait, there's a Finding Nemo musical?"
Now being created and soon to be discovered by you and all the people of the world, the latest addition to the Walt Disney World Resort, Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Since opening on Earth Day 1998, Disney's Animal Kingdom has remained one of the Mouse House's most beautiful and unique theme parks. The Imagineers, led by the legendary Joe Rohde, poured their heart and soul into the park, filling it with stunning landscapes, innovative attractions, and endless secrets to discover. Amongst the park's opening day attractions was a show called Journey into Jungle Book. Located at the Outdoor Theater in the Wild, Journey into Jungle Book was a 25-minute musical retelling of Disney's 1967 classic. The show featured live actors using a mix of puppetry and animal costumes reminiscent of the Broadway musical Cats. The show would only last for the first year of the park's existence, closing in April 1999 to make room for a new show based around the latest animated Disney film.
When the rhythm gets rolling, the jungle starts jumping. On stage and waking up the wild. Tarzan Rocks, Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Opening on July 9, 1999, Tarzan Rocks was a 30-minute concert that featured aerialists, live singers, a live band, professional skaters, and dancers, all performing to the iconic Phil Collins music from the film. Unlike Journey to Jungle Book, Tarzan Rocks was not a retelling of the story of Tarzan. Instead, it was more in line with Animal Kingdom's other opening day show, Festival of the Lion King. Both shows were a celebration of the music in their respective films rather than an attempt to recreate moments from the films. Tarzan Rocks quickly became a fan favorite and a welcome addition to Animal Kingdom. But a little orange clownfish was lurking just around the corner. Finding Nemo was an instant hit when it swam into movie theaters the summer of 2003. Pixar's animated adventure opened at number 1 at the box office and would go on to gross $871 million worldwide, dethroning Disney's The Lion King as the highest-grossing animated film of all time. Finding Nemo went on to become Pixar's first film to win Best Animated Feature at the Academy Awards. With a massively popular new property on their hands, Disney quickly began finding ways to incorporate Nemo and Friends into their theme parks. Epcot became the de facto home for Finding Nemo, incorporating the movie into the Living Seas Pavilion with new attractions like the interactive Turtle Talk with Crush. In 2005, it was announced that the pavilion would be renamed The Seas with Nemo and Friends, and the former Sea Cab ride would receive a Nemo-themed makeover. 2005 would also bring rumors of Nemo coming to another park, Animal Kingdom. Word began to spread as early as February 2005 that Tarzan Rocks would be closing permanently to make way for a new Finding Nemo show. The rumors were confirmed later that year, and Tarzan Rocks would play its final performance on January 21, 2006. Following the show's closure, Theater in the Wild underwent a major renovation to convert the space from a partially outdoor amphitheater to a fully enclosed theater. In April 2006, more details emerged about the new Finding Nemo show. The show would be the first produced for Walt Disney World by Disney Creative Entertainment, the group behind multiple projects on Disney Cruise Line and Aladdin, a musical spectacular at Disney's California Adventure. The new stage production of Finding Nemo would utilize puppets, but unlike previous Disney World shows that hid the puppeteers, Finding Nemo would have the puppeteers in plain sight, using different styles of puppetry, including Rod and Bunraku. Most notably, it was revealed that this version of Finding Nemo would be a musical. Finding Nemo the Musical would mark the first time that Disney and Pixar would adapt one of their non-musical films for the stage. In order to accomplish this, Disney hired a world-class team of creatives to bring Nemo to life. Michael Curry was brought on board to design the puppets for the show. Curry was a world-renowned puppet maker who had worked with Julie Taymor to co-create the stunning puppets and masks for Disney's The Lion King on Broadway. To choreograph, Disney would hire Broadway's John Carafa. Carafa was a two-time Tony nominee for his work on Urinetown the Musical and the 2002 revival of Into the Woods. Disney turned to Peter Brocious to direct. Brocious was the artistic director of the Children's Theatre Company of Minneapolis. In 2003, Brocious led the charge to bring CTC's production of A Year with Frog and Toad to Broadway. The show would earn a Tony nomination for Best Musical, and CTC would be awarded the Regional Theatre Tony Award. To write the show, Disney sought out someone who would be able to condense the 100-minute film into a 35-minute stage production and compose an original score. They'd find the perfect match in Kristen Anderson-Lopez. Anderson-Lopez had written a 15-minute musical adaptation of the Greek tragedy Oedipus Rex called Oedipus a cappella. The musical was part of an assignment during her time in the BMI Lehman Engel Musical Theater Workshop. It was in that workshop that Kristen would meet her future husband, Robert Lopez. The very first song the couple wrote together happened to be for a different Disney project featuring puppets, Bear in the Big Blue House.
I hear adventure calling to me out there in the wide, wide world.
The couple married in October 2003, just a few months after Robert Lopez's adult puppet musical Avenue Q made its Broadway debut.
If we all could just admit that we are racist a little bit, even though we all know that it's wrong, maybe it would help us get along.
Robert Lopez would win the 2004 Tony Award for Best Original Score, along with his writing partner Jeff Marks, whom he'd also met in that fateful BMI workshop. A few months later, Kristen Anderson-Lopez would be approached by Disney to adapt Finding Nemo for the stage.
And they said, "Is there someone you want to write with?" And I said, "Well, I got this guy. I'm married to him. He just won a Tony for Avenue Q. Would that be a good idea?"
Disney thought it was a great idea. Despite Robert Lopez being primarily known for writing one of the dirtiest musicals Broadway had ever seen, Disney welcomed him with open arms.
Disney is not this sanitized place that you might imagine it to be. They hired Ashman and Menken after they did Little Shop of Horrors, which was sort of the Avenue Q of its day. I don't think Disney has any problem with employing people who have done off-color stuff in the past.
And so, Kristen and Robert set off to write the music for Finding Nemo, their first major project together. They faced the unique challenge of writing musical theater songs that retained the flavor of Thomas Newman's Oscar-nominated film score.
There was definitely a point in our little room in Astoria where we were writing it that we were like, it can't be done. It can't be done. And then Bobby stumbled on this vamp that had both the flavor of Thomas Newman and theatricality to it. And we were like, maybe it can be done. And we kind of followed that path.
And Kristen said, make it sound younger, like a young fish. And so I started playing it up here.
Auditions were held in the spring of 2006. Disney held casting calls in New York, LA, and Orlando to find the perfect people to inhabit Nemo's undersea world.
I got this offer to go to Disney World for 16 months to take over the role of Kume in the Festival of the Lion King. I had only spent about 8 months or 6 months or something like that at Festival of the Lion King, and then they were having auditions for this big to-do show that they were talking about all over the park. They were huge composers and directors, and it was like a big deal. It was very Broadway.
I was actually working for Disney already at Disneyland. I opened the show Aladdin, a musical spectacular out there. I saw the audition notice, so I went on to audition in LA, and they called me back for Crush, the sea turtle. So I went to Orlando. I sang the song. It was a high C. I hit it with falsetto first, and then I said, you know, I can hit that full voice. Would you like to hear that? And the director said, yes, I would love to hear that. They changed the way they looked for that character from then on.
I remember coming in for the callback, and they gave us like a fake puppet. And I just remember running around with a fish on a stick. I kind of had an idea of what it might be like from The Lion King, because I knew Michael Curry was working on the puppets, but I didn't know exactly. I was really excited about the thought of doing it because I loved puppetry, and I'd done just like a little bit of puppetry here and there.
Each role was double cast to meet the demands of a theme park show schedule. The original cast featured Allison Case and Vanessa Ray as Nemo, Michael Dean Morgan and Cullen R. Titmus as Marlin, Lexy Fridell and Michelle Lane as Dory, Victor E. Chan and Burt Rodriguez as Crush, and Kurt Von Schmattu and Michael L. Waters as Bruce. Between the two casts, the original company of Finding Nemo the Musical consisted of 34 actors, making it one of the biggest shows at Walt Disney World.
I saw a post that was like they needed a Nemo and a Marlin and for the show at Walt Disney World, and I am a big Disney fan. My first job was at Disneyland. I auditioned 11 times and got cast to hold the rope at the end of the electrical parade, and it was like Broadway dreams coming true. It's still one of my favorite memories. But so I saw this posting and I went to LA. So I wore my hair in 2 buns and I wore my orange Crocs, and I went and sang, and I got cast and drove my bug cross country to Florida. Michael Dean Morgan, who played Marlin, he was a grad student when I was an undergrad. So we had known each other before, which was really special to kind of then go on that journey together.
This was actually, interesting enough, my first equity job was doing Finding Nemo. I'd just come out of graduate school. I'd moved to New York. I remember when they were casting the show, they wanted Broadway caliber performers, and they were willing to house people. I remember I got a rental car for the entire length of my contract there. It was like I was coming into a regional theater or doing an out-of-town tryout for a show.
I was contracted at that point at Hollywood Studios, which used to be MGM Studios, as one of the 1940s characters. I think at one point I knew 7 or 8 shows at the same time on Disney property at the time that I learned Nemo. And I remember seeing everyone in Orlando at those auditions. And I went back to work at Streetmosphere, and everyone was like, oh, so you got in, what's it gonna be like? I was like, I have no idea. And boy, we sure didn't.
By September 2006, it was time for rehearsals. The company would have just 2 months to learn the show and master using Michael Curry's intricate puppets.
The hardest part was the puppet, learning how to, make her work with what we're doing as an actor. I was just absolutely obsessed with figuring out how to make her come to life. So I would stay after the rehearsals and stand in front of a mirror and work on each little line and each little nod and blink and everything like that.
I have seldom seen performers spend so much of their not working time working. We were really invested, both artistically and just the scale of what we were doing felt cool.
It's difficult. When I first saw the puppet, I didn't think it would be that hard. Then I picked him up, and he's heavier than you would think. But it's been an amazing experience to be able to have this new skill.
It was definitely a new experience for me. At first, it felt very foreign. I feel like I'm speaking, and I'm like, this puppet is heavy, and I don't really know what to do. And then, as you go, it's weird. It just kind of clicks. All of a sudden, you're not even thinking about it, and you're talking with it. You kind of have to become one with the puppet in a weird way.
We also had to body condition because those puppets are hard. So we had Tai Chi and Pilates every single morning.
We were blessed in that first production to actually work with Michael Curry, who is the puppet designer.
This is carbon fiber. It's a very lightweight space-age material, and then transitioning to a stretch spandex with a little fan in it. And so down here you have two simple handles. One of them is operating the mouth, and one of them is operating the eyes. And they're ambidextrous because at different times we stage it left and right hand. And then we train the actors just to keep a little life in there, like they're suspended in water.
They're all so good now. We would pop back like every 2 weeks from September until November when the soft opening happened, and we saw these cast members just get stronger and more svelte until like Lexy, who plays Dory, her arms are so cut because these are 10-pound puppets.
I don't know what I would do without her now, so, we've melded.
The first time I ever sung on a Broadway stage was because they took some of us and flew us up with the composers to do a press event at the Palace Theater.
We went to the Palace Theater. We were on the stage. They set it up so that nobody was in the audience. They put bleachers on the stage so that it's a much smaller venue so that we could sing Go With The Flow live.
The only time I'd been at the Palace before had been to see Aida with Heather Headley. And I remember being downstairs in the dressing room just looking for which dressing room had been Heather Headley's, and I was like,
it was so magical. It's like one of the coolest things that I'd ever done.
Meanwhile, back at Walt Disney World, theme park goers were also getting a preview of the new musical with the technical opening of The Seas with Nemo and Friends in October 2006. In the dark ride portion of the pavilion, riders would be amongst the first to hear a bit of the upcoming musical's opening number, In the Big Blue World. After years of development and months of rehearsal, the time finally arrived to have the very first public performance of Finding Nemo the Musical.
We walked into the theater for the first time, and it was like, wow, this is like massive. Just everything was so big.
It was really magical. I mean, I remember Dory would come out for the first entrance in the middle of the theater. The kids would just go crazy. Dory!
Everyone was proud of it. Everybody was really honored by what I think we had created.
Unlike a Broadway show where a bad review from a critic can sink a show's chances of succeeding, a theme park show only has to impress park guests, and Finding Nemo the Musical did just that.
People were just so drawn into it, and it felt like a real Broadway show. It was so popular. I think like once word got out, people were really like flocking to come see the show. It was like a really big attraction in that particular park.
But as with all things, Finding Nemo the Musical had a handful of detractors as well.
I remember there being chatter about whether it was too avant-garde for a Disney audience to have particularly a puppeteer next to a puppet.
For puppet designer Michael Curry, hiding the puppeteers was out of the question.
I never hide the puppeteer. I find that it's very disconcerting for today's audience to know that there's a manipulator and have them hidden. It seems like a waste of talent. The audience today can process this very easily. And in fact, what happens, this is a very simple puppet. It has moving eyes and a mouth and pretty good animation in terms of its movement of its body, but I need my own face to complete its expression.
As preview performances continued, the show made a number of minor changes.
The original concept of the costume was this total hippie dude. He was wearing like a tie-dye shirt, some short green shorts. He had like these dreadlocks made out of seaweed. It was decided that it was too out of the design sphere of the show. Thus, they put us in the jumpsuit.
The cast had a moment that was our favorite. Oh.
How do I even explain? It's something so small, but I feel like had such an impact.
That was my favorite moment of the entire show. Just at the end, Nemo says, "Bye, Dad." Marlin says, "Bye, son." And they go away. Pretty simple. But it used to be that they would hold up their puppets, and right before that moment, they would drop the puppet, and They would look at each other, and the human actor would say, "My dad."
My son. And it said to the audience, this is not a story about fish. It's a story about a parent and a child. And every day we'd get a standing ovation without fail.
I remember the first couple times not even being able to say it. I was like so emotional.
I don't want to bash any Disney creatives, but John Lasseter came in and was worried that people wouldn't understand that moment.
He came back and the notes were, when you turn the puppet upside down, John Lasseter said, my character looks dead.
So that's when it changed.
My son.
That was the moment that I felt our show go from our special jewel in the rehearsal studio to a commercial product.
We never got a standing ovation after that.
Finding Nemo the Musical officially opened on January 24th, 2007. The show was unlike anything that came before it, delivering Broadway-quality music, staging, and puppetry that dazzled kids and adults alike. Disney and Pixar took a major risk adapting one of their non-musical titles for the stage, and it paid off. Disney heavily promoted the show with featured spots on the Travel Channel as well as their own Disney Channel.
I'm Chester. I'm Kyle. I'm Jason. And this is Disney 365. See ya!
Disney 365.
We were the thing. Like, there was no way of not feeling that way. Expedition Everest was opening at the time, and we were allowed to, like, go to the front of the line. So oftentimes we would, like, be having our dinner break, and we'd be like, want to go ride? Funny how many times we had to start late because people would call. They were stuck at the top of the ride, and they'd be like, I'm so sorry, we're stuck. It happened at least once.
Just one day before the show's official opening, Disney released Finding Nemo the Musical's cast album. However, the cast featured on the album was mostly comprised of Broadway performers who had participated in earlier readings and workshops of the show in New York and LA, not the cast performing on stage in Orlando. Victor E. Chan as Crush is the sole original cast member featured on the album.
I'm not sure who the actor was who sang Crush on the album, but it just didn't have the right sound for Bobby and Kristen. They went to our musical director and said, we need someone who can do this. And they said, Victor can do it. They rushed me into the recording studio at Hollywood Studios in Orlando, got that recording done, and after that was all done, said, okay, you can't say anything. I really didn't like keeping anything from my cast, and when they found out, they were also very supportive of that. They were also very supportive.
Robert and Kristen Lopez are also featured on the album, performing as Marlin and Dory, respectively. They also have a brief voiceover cameo in the show as the two penguins spreading the news of Marlin's travels.
And then this whale comes along, takes him right to Sydney Harbor and shoots him at his spout. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. Wait a minute, we're penguins. We can't fly.
The Lopezes were able to craft a true musical filled with motifs and full character arcs with just a third of the film's runtime.
It's just so beautifully written. I truly don't know how they did that in 30 to 35 minutes.
The biggest challenge of this thing was never to write, the songs, which kind of came very quickly and easily and were so much fun to write, but it was a challenge of structurally finding the key moments that really brought the heart and the humor of the movie to this shortened pocket version, as it were.
Andrew Stanton's message there of the world is dangerous and beautiful, and as a parent, you have to let your kid go out and experience it despite all of your instincts to just keep them protected. That was really so easy to kind of hang the whole story on. It provided such great architecture.
Their first major project together had been a home run. Disney was so impressed with their work on Finding Nemo that they hired the Lopezes to write the music for the big screen, starting with 2011's Winnie the Pooh.
If everything is me and I am what I eat, I must be made of honey. Her life is very sweet.
The film was a critical success, though it didn't set the box office on fire. But it would be the Lopez's next collaboration with Disney that would change everything.
Let it go, let it
me anyway.
On November 27, 2013, Frozen premiered in movie theaters and swiftly took over the world. The film would go on to gross over $400 million in the United States and over $1 billion worldwide, dethroning Finding Nemo to become the highest-grossing non-sequel animated film of all time. The songs were composed by none other than Kristen and Robert Lopez and would earn them widespread acclaim, and perhaps the ire of parents everywhere. Their song Let It Go, performed by Idina Menzel, became the breakout hit of the film and would earn the duo an Academy Award for Best Original Song, making Robert Lopez the youngest person to ever achieve EGOT status, having previously won 2 Emmys, a Grammy, and 3 Tonys, all in the span of just 10 years. The Lopezes went on to win a second Academy Award in 2018 for their song Remember Me from Disney and Pixar's Coco. This made Robert Lopez the first, and as of this time, only person to have achieved EGOT status twice over. In 2019, they returned to Arendelle for Frozen 2, which went on to outgross the first film at the box office. And in 2021, the songwriting team won their first Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Original Music and Lyrics for Agatha All Along from Marvel's WandaVision. In the liner notes of the Finding Nemo the Musical cast album, the Lopezes write, "How did we get so lucky? Somehow the Walt Disney Company decided to entrust us, a young untested songwriting team, and newlyweds no less, with the enormous challenge of adapting one of the greatest animated films of all time, Disney and Pixar's Finding Nemo, into a musical. With all the success that Lopezes have brought Disney over the years, it seems clear now that Disney were the true lucky ones." Finding Nemo the Musical continued to entertain park guests, becoming a must-see show and staple of Animal Kingdom. In 2009, the show was awarded Best Live Show from the Themed Entertainment Association. By 2014, the show had run longer than Journey to Jungle Book and Tarzan Rocks combined. The show just kept swimming, and seemed as if it would never stop.
Breaking just into our newsroom, a historic move amid the coronavirus. Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando both announcing they are closing their theme parks.
After this weekend, the Walt Disney World Resort right here behind me will be closed through the end of the month.
On March 15, 2020, Walt Disney World closed its doors due to the growing threat of COVID-19. What was intended to be a 2-week closure turned into a months-long nightmare. The park sat empty as Disney cast members sat at home, eagerly awaiting the call to come back to work, including me. I'd just been cast as Bruce the Shark in Finding Nemo and was days away from moving to Orlando when everything shut down. When Disney World partially reopened on July 10, 2020, live entertainment was nowhere to be found. This was largely due to a dispute between Disney and the Stage Actors Union Actors Equity Association. Disney refused to meet Equity's requirement to provide COVID testing for their performers, who, due to the nature of their jobs, would not be able to wear masks or socially distance. 2 months later, Disney opened a free testing facility for Florida residents, and Equity actors were allowed to return to work. Slowly but surely, live entertainment came back to the parks, though most offerings were modified. At Animal Kingdom, Festival of the Lion King became Celebration of Festival of the Lion King, an abridged version of the show that removed popular acts like the Tumble Monkeys so that the cast members could be as distanced as possible. But even with live entertainment returning to Animal Kingdom, Theater in the Wild remained empty. There was still no word on when or if Finding Nemo the Musical would return. Spring 2021 brought the news that Broadway shows would finally be returning in late summer. This offered a glimmer of hope to Finding Nemo cast members, as their show was the closest thing to a Broadway show at Walt Disney World. But that glimmer would soon fade away. In September 2021, cast members were notified that Finding Nemo the Musical would not be reopening, and it played its final performance on March 15, 2020. Cast members shared their goodbyes on social media, using the hashtag #WeSwimTogether as a way to share their memories. After 14 years of non-stop performances, Finding Nemo the Musical was no more. Well, kinda. Shortly after the news of Nemo's closure spread, Disney announced that an updated version of the show would debut in 2022. The show would receive a number of cosmetic changes, including a new set design utilizing a bright LED screen displaying digital scenery. But the biggest changes were more than merely cosmetic. The show, now called Finding Nemo, The Big Blue and Beyond, would cut approximately 10 minutes of material, bringing the show to a brisk 25 minutes. When the new show premiered on June 11, 2022, many longtime Finding Nemo the Musical fans were left heartbroken by the many, many omissions.
In the arms of the angel, fly away from here, from this dark, cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you fear. You are pulled from the wreckage of your silent reverie. You're in the arms of the angel. May you find some comfort here.
The updated show begins at the Marine Life Institute from Finding Dory, where the tank gang, minus Bubbles, are awaiting release back into the ocean. They now act as narrators throughout the show, talking directly to the audience and helping fill in the gaps left by the abridged script.
It all started with a little clownfish named Nemo.
From there, the show swims from scene to scene at a breakneck pace. Nearly every song is reduced in length, and some, like Where's My Dad, are cut entirely. The new show received mixed reactions from park guests, with mostly negative opinions from people who had seen the original version. Despite all of this, the one thing that has remained the same between the two shows is the quality of the performers. The performers at Disney are among the best of the best. They perform for thousands of people a day, and yet, for most theme park performers, they do so completely anonymously.
Theme park shows and theme park actors really don't get enough credit. You have to be top-notch to be able to work at a theme park. You really do.
I know the stigmas that are sometimes had with working at a theme park or working on a cruise ship, working anywhere outside of Broadway. I know those stigmas. I never cared for them. Some of the most incredible people I've ever worked with were the people that I worked with while I was at Disney World.
Because I had to do so many shows on a microphone with no script at Disney World, I am ready for whatever an audience throws at me. When we brought Disenchanted off Broadway, which Michelle Knight and I did, we were the two Peaches, they were like, oh, well, you can take anything the audience gives you because there's so much improv in the show. And we were like, we're theme park actors.
Some of our performers opted to stay at Disney doing that show for a super, super long time. And they were the first of all of us to own a car, own a house, get married and have kids. All these things. I was like, oh yeah, that's really intelligent. The performers at Disney are the hardest working people I have ever met in this business.
While the original Finding Nemo musical will likely never be seen live again, the show still lives on in a different way. In 2022, Music Theater International released the rights to Finding Nemo Jr., an expanded 60-minute version of the original show, allowing theater companies and schools to put on their own productions and create their own Big Blue World.
I'm currently directing a production of Finding Nemo. It'll go up at the first stage in Milwaukee. We're actually having kids play the kid part, so Nemo will be a child.
I had the pleasure of actually directing Finding Nemo Jr. up at a Gunkwit Playhouse. And talk about full circle, watching it come alive with this next generation. I was just like, this is crazy.
Now Nemo and Friends will live forever on stages around the world. Finding Nemo the Musical was unlike any theme park show that came before it. That's because its creators never treated it like a theme park show. The care and craft that went into its creation rivaled many Broadway shows, and in some cases, exceeded them. The show launched Bobby and Kristen Lopez's partnership as a songwriting team and began their journey with Disney that would lead to unprecedented success. Many former Finding Nemo cast members have gone on to work on Broadway, in television, film, and more, but they will always have a soft spot for that little orange clownfish.
I thought my Broadway debut would be the show in my life that I always come back to. I thought me being a lead, like I was Mr. Banks and Mary Poppins, would be the show I'd always come back to. I thought me being in a huge tour of The Lion King. These all seem like really big, exciting projects. But the one that is mine is Finding Nemo. It will always be the beginning of a chapter in my family's life, and it'll always be something that I feel I helped build. And I think when you build something, it's forever part of you.
I just have such a warm feeling in my heart whenever I think about the show. It means so much to me. Our cast was so tight-knit, and I feel like we would still just drop anything to help each other, and it always makes me tear up thinking about the show.
Pride it's a huge word that I keep thinking about when I think about my time there, because I was proud of my friends because they were creating some beautiful storytelling, the sacrifices that were being made, the hard work. People were training nonstop to get their bodies in a shape where they look like professional puppeteers who had been doing it for years. It was the people. I always got to be surrounded by not just like support and love, but there was this excitement for each other's talent. There was an excitement for each other's storytelling. And I don't think I'll ever forget that.
Finding Nemo changed my life. It brought friends into my life that I still have today that are some of the strongest support systems that I have. It put me in a long-term show, my very first long-term show. And I have to thank Kristen Lopez and the team, the casting team, because they kept me in mind and really brought me up for like workshops and projects in New York. So it really did change my life.
It was like a childhood dream. Like, again, I had like seen all these shows and it was a really big deal to me. I wanted to be in a production at Disney really bad. So it was like me living my dream. I met so many wonderful people there, and we came together and built this thing, or we were all part of it together. I've since taken my sons, and I like sat on the bleacher seat just like crying as they watch it. So it's really special.
Finding Nemo the musical is one of those shows that will be a part of me forever. Every single one of those cast members, they're family to me. Even if we don't speak for decades, if I see one of them, it'll be like no time has passed. Just because I love each and every one of them. That whole process was just magical for me.